Clare Page, who is a parent, like me, seeking transparency in schools.
Hello.
Clare, thank you so much for joining us here today. Are you pleased with the parent-first approach that we understand the government is taking in this new guidance?
Well, actually, I'm not. I obviously got to wait for the details, but I don't support the guidance as it's been described so far. I think that this should be child-led, firstly, and I think what we've got is something of a fudge, basically because equalities law wouldn't allow the government to do what it really wanted to do, which was to halt social transition of children. And because they couldn't achieve that with equalities law, they chose to make something quite non-definitive and full of loopholes, really. And so the situation now is that children are probably going to be socially transitioned very much according to the whim of teachers and indeed to parents who themselves can have quite ideological positions on this. So I don't really feel that it actually solves our problem.
OK, well, Clare, let me just drill down, because you've covered quite a lot of subjects. First of all, I see that this morning, Jacob Rees-Mogg has come out and called for the Equalities Act to be scrapped, saying it is the only way we can restore common sense to British society. It sounds like that this fudge, I think as you called it, in this guidance, you're not going to get the guidance you want unless that equality law is scrapped, apparently. So would you agree with Jacob Rees-Mogg? Would you like to see the government more robust and planning for that to happen?
Yes, I'd really like the government to do two things. I mean, firstly, yes, changing equalities law. I mean, the government, actually, the Attorney General has said it would be necessary. I actually like to think that they could have made a choice to be brave and make this guidance the way they wanted it, even without changing the law, because the chances are the government is going to face a legal challenge from either direction, even with this guidance. So I think they should have pursued their actual intentions, really. But I think there's something else they should do apart from changing equalities law. I think they should change the Keeping Children Safe in Education statutory guidance. That has had some influence from charities like Stonewall to make sure that identifying as transgender is excluded from the safeguarding guidance. And that's a real problem. That leaves us with children who have explaining that they're transgender, not going through a proper safeguarding process. And such a process should find out whether the child has been bullied, whether they have other comorbidities or mental health issues, indeed whether the parents are perhaps pressing them with their views. And all of those things need to be looked at very carefully in every individual case. And we need something much more sophisticated and safeguarding focused to deal with that.
But Clare, I mean, the current situation is that there is no real guidance for schools particularly, and teachers find themselves in a very difficult position. I'm assuming, although I may be wrong, that you do support the proposal in this guidance as reported that teachers are obliged to tell parents if their child socially transitions within a school environment. I'm assuming that's one thing you can support in this.
Yes, I would support talking and telling parents. The thing is, there are two sides to that. Telling a parent doesn't mean that gives the parent the permission to determine what will happen to the child. So we can't have it that by telling the parent and the parent saying, yes, I want this child socially transitioned, that schools then have to do what the parent says. There's a bigger safeguarding and mental health question there than just doing what parents want. But I do believe parents should always be informed, unless, of course, there is some incredibly clear safeguarding risk why they shouldn't. But I think schools would already know about that. The majority of parents, of course, love their children, know what's best for them, and should be at least asked their opinion. And parents may have some really important information. They may be able to explain, well, you know what, my child has been affected online, they have been bullied, or there is peer pressure taking place, things which actually feed into the social contagion of trans ideology. So, parents should be talked to for sure.
And then the other thing, which I hope you'll also support, is I think we have to accept that, I get that you're not happy with this, but I think we have to accept there may be some good things in it. Not least, actually, that I think teachers have felt very vulnerable because there's been no guidance to them. They've been sort of feeling their way in this big sort of change we're seeing in society. And I think it is a help for them to have guidance. How do you feel about children being able to play sport in the gender they identify as long as it's non-contact. Has the government got the balance right there, Claire?
I would say not. I mean, I don't understand why they've made a distinction between contact and non-contact sport. I think that the distinction is actually competitive and non-competitive sport. You know, it's fine to have a fun mixed game of something where you're not really playing competitively and you're making a social occasion of it between girls, boys. But actually, when it's competitive, girls deserve their own sport to play in competitively against kids of their own sex. And the government hasn't secured that, which I think is a huge miss.
Claire, thank you so much for joining us and talking to us on this very important issue. And thank you actually for all the campaigning you've been doing on behalf of parents to make sure that this guidance
Thanks very
comes
much.
forward.
Thanks.